How annoying would it be to find out that you're actually in your own way? Let's have a chat. Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for sharing, for commenting, for liking. Really appreciate all the people that recently subscribed. If you are here for the first time, this is the B-Voy project, which is the best version of yourself. We just share information here to help you become a best version of yourself. So hopefully you'll find this useful. And if you do, please kindly do us a favor and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the videos when we post them again. Now then, what we're talking about today is thinking like an owner, not an operator. This is the concept of long-term leverage. Okay, so I know this topic kind of sounds a little bit business-like, but then we're going to try to switch it up a bit as we're going along. We are going to talk about the business side of it. As entrepreneurs, we do want to know how to create long-term or longevity of a business that doesn't require you too much. But at the same time, how does this information actually help me in my personal life, right? Let's get into that and see how we can try to assess that part of it. So in terms of actually assessing what this actually is, the concept of thinking like an owner rather than an operator, this is the shift from an operator, which is the trading time for execution. This is the element of I am doing this for X amount of time, as in time equal to X amount of money. I am doing this at £10 per hour. I'm going to use those figures just to be simple. Now you might be watching this from somewhere else where you don't use pounds as a currency. I'm talking to you from the UK. We use pounds here. It could be dollars where you are. It could be whatever it is. Just change that sign at the front. The idea still stays the same. So the idea that you are working for £10 an hour, which means every hour that I am doing this piece of work, I am accumulating £10. That's the thinking of an operator, to shifting into an owner, which is an investor. Okay, so you're investing time, not necessarily narrowing it down to time is equal to money. You're investing your time to create something that will generate income even if you don't put as much time in the future. So investing in long-term leverage. Now we're going to go into this a little bit more so you can sort of understand what that looks like. All right. Now, as we're going along, as I mentioned, I'm going to try to see how that concept can be utilized in your personal life. Now, there's three things that I want us to go through in terms of the entrepreneur side and what it is that it means and how you can utilize this in your own business potentially. Okay, now the first kind of leverage, so to speak, is the people leverage, which is called delegation. Okay, now when we say people leverage, it kind of sounds wrong that we're using other people, but ultimately this is how businesses grow. We utilize other people's skills, other people's time, so that you can leverage. Now, what does that actually mean in terms of delegation? Delegation is a concept where you're not just hiring assistants or operators or people that just come in to do their piece of work and just follow processes. You're trying to hire mini owners, people that can think outside of the box. The most important part of your business is recruitment, because the people that you invite into your business will either make or break it. Okay, so at the very bare minimum, you're looking for someone who will do just what you asked for. However, for your business to grow better, you want to find people that actually do better than you, more skilled than you, people that can use their initiative is the big word there. People that can use their initiative, people that will assess the business, assess the task that they've been given, and start identifying how that task can be done better. Okay, so these are the kind of people that you're looking for, people who are inspired by building things, i.e., this is where I found it. This business was this size at the point that I came in. My aspiration is, with my input and my ideas and my knowledge and the skills that I will accumulate in the process, this business has to be bigger than what it was when I got there. Not just growing naturally, but then growing because of my input. Those are the kind of people that you look for. Okay, ultimately the action based on that would be to stop answering questions, i.e., how do I do this, how do I do this. You start empowering them to actually start answering their own questions. Ultimately what you're doing there is you're empowering them, you're actually engaging their brains and getting them to think through certain things. So let them discover a problem and suggest a solution, rather than be in a position where there's a problem here and you're the one who's answering the question. There's a problem here, you're the one who's always coming up with the solution. Because if you set up your business that way, you will always be the one who ends up answering those questions forever. Because what you're training them, or essentially what you're teaching them, is I'm the one with all the answers. So just whatever problem you come up with, bring it to me. I will answer it. And then their brain will shut down in terms of, we've got a problem. Automatic solution is, I'll go ask that person over and over again. What you want them to do is to identify the problem, come up with a few options of solutions. So when they come to you, they say, right, here's the problem that we found. Here's the suggested solutions. This one is the one that I highly recommend because of reasons 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And what you can then do is scrutinize their thought process rather than their solution, their thought process, until you actually come up with something that works. Now that way, you will actually build up a business with people that are looking to grow. Right? Now, what does that look like in personal life? That is a direct, understandable thing that you can utilize in your business. But this could be in your own family. You could be a mother or a father with children, and this is the same concept that you can utilize. You want your kids to ask questions, but then also encourage them to answer their own questions. So when they come up with a question, how do you do this? What does this mean? You actually ask that question back. What do you think it means? What do you think we should do about this situation? Ultimately, what you're training them to do is to be independent. Ideal scenario as a parent, so to speak, is to encourage your own kids to not need you. I know it sounds harsh, but to not actually need you at all when they grow up, because the more they need you when they grow up, the less independent they are. And the last thing you want is a 40-year-old, 2-year-old brain who's constantly coming back to mommy and daddy to ask, how do I do this? This is what I need to be doing. How can I do this? Right? So ultimately, this starts at a young age. Now, I'm using the example of you as a parent. It could be you as a sibling talking to someone younger. It could be you in a family who just has a position of slight authority for whatever reason, and you're trying to engage people to start thinking on their own. This is not an element of throwing them in the deep end and just leaving them to drown. No, you're encouraging people around you to start thinking for themselves. Okay, hope that makes sense. Now, number 2 is the concept of system leverage, which we typically call automation. Now, what that is a concept. Systems act as a bridge between chaos and consistency. Now, this is where you actually utilize systems, and I know I'm reusing the word itself, but then this could be software that you can utilize to speed up the processes. This could be machinery that you can use to speed up certain processes. What this does, these systems, what they do is they enable one person to do many people's jobs, right? So you're actually now leveraging a system, a machine, whatever it is, to allow one person to do many people's jobs. And therefore, you can actually increase efficiency, you can increase effectiveness, and you can increase productivity. What does that look like in personal life? That could be the same thing, essentially. What are we doing that we can utilize? Can we actually start utilizing things like calendars, devices that we have? We can utilize them to actually help us. What needs to be done on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis? And we can do that as a family. Running a family as if it's actually a business is a wise thing to do, because it also teaches your children to be organized. So we can utilize these devices that we've got, not just for scrolling on social media, which could actually just create a dead brain. Ultimately, you can utilize these devices to create systems that allow you to do certain things. What are the things we want to do? We want to allocate this time for family dinner. We want to allocate this time for Bible reading. We want to allocate this time for homework, for whatever it is. Instead of actually thinking, I will try to remember to do this thing. Now, you might have activities that you go for. It could be swimming, it could be dance, whatever it is. You allocate write them and put them in a calendar. Or it could be groceries. Instead of relying on your memory, you could actually create a system that allows you to update what thing you need to be buying every time you go for groceries. Now, many people actually recognize this as an issue, that every time we're supposed to go for groceries, you're like, what have I run out of? And then you end up buying things, double up on things, and also miss things, and then realize that you're going to need to go back to the grocery shop because you have missed something. But if you create a system, that's actually a system. When you create something where something runs out, we tick a box somewhere. It could be a manual piece of paper where you say, that's the last thing we're picking up. I tick this, and you've actually created a grocery list at that point, and choose one day of the week or one day of the month, however many times you want to go into the shop, so that when you go to the shops or the grocery shop, you have a list that you know is exactly correct to what your requirements are. This can also tie up to your finances. How much are we spending weekly? How much are we spending monthly? You tie it up with how much you're spending based on what you're buying. You can tie it up to a document that could record what it is that you're spending on bills, you're spending on leisure. All of those are actually systems that make things easier for you to see how your life looks. Okay, so you can utilize that in your personal and also in your business life. Number 3, the last one, is capital and asset leverage. This is typically called yield, right? What that is think like a private investor. Instead of thinking just like an operator, you think like a private investor. I mentioned this at the start, where investors will invest time in. They will put in money, but then they're looking at how much time this is going to buy back. Okay, so they may put a lot of time in to start with zero income, sometimes no income for a long period of time, but because they understand that they're building something that will give them their time back, plus a lot of returns as well at the same time, where they're required to put less time into it. So if you're creating a machine that's going to generate income, and your plan is, I am creating this machine, I'm going to invest a lot of time, instead of looking at it as an operator where you're working for £10 an hour and that's a linear phase, I'm just working for £10 an hour. In a year's time, I'm still working for £10 an hour. The income is the same, the time implementation is the same. Whereas if you're thinking like an investor, I could increase my time input. I could be working for 15 hours a day, 18 hours a day, and zero income. But what I'm building is something that will start shifting, where the income will start coming in. At some point, the income will level with the amount of time I'm putting in. But because I'm building something that's actually going to be self-sustaining, the income will increase, the time input will decrease, where I'll just be there to keep it running, just to maintain something, to keep it running. Now, that could be any asset. It could be a house that you could spend a lot of money and time to build or to buy. And then as you go along, the house value goes up, the debt you've got is dropping down, the income is coming through rentals, where you get to a point where once in 3 or 4 months, you just go to inspect, you check the income, your input in terms of time required is drastically reduced, but the income is still coming and it's also growing. That's the concept of looking at this in terms of capital and asset leveraging. Now, the action itself is to reinvest assets. Now, all of these assets, we spoke about the software, we spoke about documentation, all of those, if you put them together and actually look at it as a whole business, you're actually building that as an asset that comes with its own value. Now, that asset that has its own value is also generating income on a monthly basis, potentially. This is the idea that we're actually trying to get you to look at, where you're building something that will pay you so that you don't have to actually put as much hours. Sometimes you could actually eradicate your input completely, where you can sit off and sit back and just watch the thing work and pay you money without you actually putting any time in. That's the ideal scenario. So this is the idea that I want you to actually kind of look at. Now, the next part of this, which is what I want to sort of talk about, is the difference between an operator's mindset and an owner's mindset. An operator's mindset is reactive. So reactive, putting out daily fires, okay, constant firefighting on a daily basis. An owner's mindset, however, design systems to prevent the fires. Even if it happens once in a while, you'll identify how that happened and you design a system that prevents the fires. Now, tie this back with what we've actually shared already. If you create those systems, you're less likely to need a reaction. You're actually continuously building something that doesn't require all of these reactive activities. An operator's mindset is also tactical. Okay, it's tactical and asks, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do this? We spoke about this earlier on, where if you're actually building a team, you want them to stop asking, how do I, how do I, how do I, directly to yourself, where you're the one who's just giving information constantly. Okay, now an owner's mindset says, how do I automate or delegate this, rather than how do I do it? How do I automate it? How do I delegate it? So that you start stepping out of the business, so that you can actually build this business so that it doesn't require you. So you work on the business rather than in the business. An operator's mindset is linear. Income, hours, income, hours, income, hours, £10 per hour, £10 per hour, linear movement. As I mentioned before, you could actually work for that same wage for a whole year and you haven't moved forward or moved back. You still put in the same amount of hours for the same amount of income. An owner's mindset, income depends on your time via leverage. There's a scale, that's scalability. You're looking at how much time you initially put in terms of leveraging. What is it that you can implement in terms of systems? What is it can you implement in terms of delegation, working with other people, so that you scale it and it's no longer linear. You might find that at the start, the amount of time you put in is up there, and whilst you're building this system, eventually that time drops and the income just comes up. It's not linear, a bit like an operator's mindset. Operator's mindset is indispensable. Now that feels great to know that nothing can happen without me. I know everything here. Now I've worked in warehouses, I've worked at McDonald's, at Burger King, in different jobs where there are people that are so proud of the fact that they know most things and things can't happen without them. Every system needs to run through them, and they understand it because they've worked there for years and years and they're so proud of that idea. But that also puts you at risk. It puts the business at risk, because the more it's dependent on that one person, the more at risk it is, because if that person is off sick, if that person decides to leave the job, you are screwed. That's the truth. I've worked in industries where the most experienced people will either leave eventually or they'll take time off and go on holiday, and the whole place just shuts down because we haven't got a clue how things work. We're just dependent on that person who just knew what they were doing. So an operator mindset is indispensable. You are the ultimate bottleneck. Essentially, everything has to go through you, so the business goes as far as you. The business goes as fast as you. And if you're slower than every other part of the chain, you're now the bottleneck. However, an owner's mindset is replaceable. An owner's mindset actually says, I am completely fine with being useless. I'm completely fine with stepping away so that this business runs without me. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being the least important person in the entire process, because ultimately that's what you want to do. You want to build a system that doesn't require you at all. The concept of helicopter management, where things are happening down there and you're watching from afar and they're running from A to Z without your requirement at all. So you can watch it and identify where improvements can be put in, but there's no requirement for you to be part of it. Okay, that's the major difference between the owner and the operator. And what we're trying to encourage you is to start thinking like an owner, not an operator, which is the concept of long-term leverage. I hope that information has been useful for you guys, and hopefully you can use that in your businesses and also in your personal lives. If you like this, as usual, please feel free to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the videos when we post them again. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you soon.